Music Matters, Mr. Ari Rivera.
Hey.
How you doing today, sir? Thank you for coming on.
Good.
Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. How are you today?
I'm good. I feel very good. Yeah. I mean, the show was great yesterday, so
yeah.
I feel just in good spirits. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good, dude. I'm doing good. Very, very, very fun show last night.
Thank you.
This is like a very exciting day to catch you, I feel like.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
Probably the best day to hit a podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So you got the EP drop yesterday, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you had the show last night, the second night of the Hardcore Paloma residency.
That's right. Yeah,
and then, so how have the overwhelming emotions been the last 24 hours? Like, how are you feeling about the reception so far? How'd you feel about the show last night? What'd you notice?
Yeah, honestly, just I told you this last night, but just like it's like overwhelming gratitude that people pulled up, that people were there, the bands that played were fucking amazing. Mm-hmm. Everybody that was in that room just really, it felt like we were all friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. I mean, Kenny was there, you know what I mean? People that you knew, probably people that we both know but don't know that we both know, you know what I mean?
Which is really cool.
Which is super sick.
I feel like, we were just talking before this about like, because we're both in the Bay Area, and we were talking about how like there is sort of like a abyss of like a scene that was once there or at the moment, and not that there isn't anything at all, but there just feels like there's like a bunch of pieces that haven't yet been put together, you know? And what was really cool about dude, it kind of blew my mind, to be honest with you, and people last night were like jokingly saying like Bay Area, because I was like, because I just was like, this is not, I was like, is this a Bay Area show? Like it had like no affiliation in my head. I didn't even know you were from the Bay.
Yeah.
So it's like, knowing that like there were like that many people in one building in LA from the Bay Area, that like, you know, like the music they're making doesn't remind me of the Bay at all.
No.
Is a very, very, very exciting thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just on the phone with my friend before coming in here, and he told me it didn't even feel like a LA show. It felt like a Bay show.
Which
is maybe the best compliment for a show I think we could get. But yeah, I mean, the connection of the Bay is just so strong. Everybody who's lived there, I think, has, you know, you feel that. You guys are from fucking the Bay, so you know what it's like. It's
very hard to like get out of you, I think.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if that's unique to the Bay Area. Like,
for sure.
I think it just is like growing up in a place with lots of culture in general, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you can like get that out of you.
Yeah, no. Yeah, for sure.
But it's super exciting too, because like, I mean, even beyond it feeling like the Bay, like last night, kind of feeling Bay Area adjacent, it also, you're very right, like it felt like a community, like a big, like, I don't know, like it just felt like there were people that were there, like not just because it was like another night, you know, they were there for that reason, to be part of something, and it also just like, there's, I don't know, there's a certain, I think this is what's so cool about live music, there's a certain level of it that becomes like undefinable, but it's like the energy in the room last night felt very like still almost.
Yeah.
And I feel like I mean, again, just to stroke your ego a little bit more, like last night, amazing, but like I think your stage presence is very like still, like it feels like a moment in time, because like the way that you kind of orchestrate everything with your stage setup and everything feels so like sparse but still like so full at the same time, you know.
Thank you, man. And
it captures a room in a way that I think, like, because I mean we were talking last night about like this iteration of the setup versus like when you used to play with live drums and live bass and stuff. It feels like this setup kind of has the power to just make somebody stop and stare for a second.
Yeah, thank you. That's really sweet of you to say.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I mean, we had done this setup before when we played my buddy Ryan's show, also at Make Out Music.
Nice.
And it was just kind of loud, and when we did the band rendition, it was very loud, lots of crashes, lots of kind of huge moments and then smaller moments. And for this one, I was just going through, you know, artists that I really like and how they did their live sets.
Yeah.
I'm a big 21 Pilots fan.
I was not expecting you to go there at all. Okay.
And Tyler Joseph is maybe the best live performer that there is. I don't know if you guys have seen that video of him in like the Apple store in Columbus, Ohio.
No.
It's just him and like a buddy on drums, and they've just set up in an Apple store, and he's like fucking running around and on the piano. It's a crazy video. This is before they had any fans really, and he's just giving it his all at the Apple store. I saw him at the Greek Theater, actually. It was my first show.
Oh, sick.
That I saw, and it was incredible. But that, and then just a few. We went to see Briston Maroney, me and Andy.
I love Briston. Yeah.
And I think watching those shows, I noticed how much, and also the openers, I noticed how much the vocal matters.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, even when you record music, like, you need to have that connection to the vocal.
Yeah.
For the people to feel it. And so for this live set, I really tried to get the band to just, like you said, like, still keep it moving, but also in this space where the vocal can really take the focus, and that most of the expression can come from that, and hopefully it resonates with the people there. So yeah, I mean, I liked how it went.
Yeah.
I think we've played better shows, but I don't think we've ever connected with the audience in that way.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of the show. It was great.
The wave analogy makes a lot of sense. Because, like, I was thinking about it on the way home, and it's very, like, dynamic was the word I was using. Like, you're right. Like, lots of moments that are up and lots that are down. And, like, but it's so interesting to hear you cite 21 Pilots as, like, an influence there.
Fucking great.
Yeah, because that's not, like, that's so interesting, because that's not, like, a world at all that, like, your music comes from. But I think that goes to show that, like,
I don't know, I think it does.
Is it?
Well, because they do, like, for one, it's emo, you know what I mean? It's super emo, and I feel like I take a lot of inspiration from that. I mean, I grew up with Fall Out Boy and Modern Baseball, like
where's the Modern Baseball liner?
You have no way.
Yeah.
It's, next
right there at Sports, yeah.
Wow.
That's like one of me and Mario's shared obsessions.
Yeah, that's a great one. I was listening to them today or yesterday, actually, before the show. Because
also insane performers.
Yeah, they're awful singers.
Terrible.
Jake is okay. Brendan is
bad.
Awful singer.
Yeah.
But he's so good. He's so emotive with his voice.
Yeah.
Tyler too. I mean, Tyler Joseph he's a good singer. He can hit the notes. But he almost has this theater-y quality.
Yeah.
And then when he screams, it's just like, oh, it cuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, they're a huge inspiration as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't expect you to say that at all. But like that's so interesting. But it's interesting because when you say it, I kind of can
you understand. Yeah,
I understand.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm like, that world is like such a love of mine. Bright Eyes is probably my favorite band ever. I mean, Conor Oberst is like my musical hero.
Nice.
That's like everything that, like, I think, like, I become obsessed with. I feel like everything that I become obsessed with, like, feels like Conor Oberst or Bright Eyes in some way. And I think, like, both Jake, Bren, and just all of Modern Baseball in general, like, as on like a songwriting level, is something that I resonated with so much when I was young. I'm also like a huge Front Bottoms fan.
Nice.
If you know them.
Yeah, of course. Like, Run for Cover. I mean, that's a fucking crazy label. Great.
That's so interesting though. Like, I just wouldn't think like that as an influence. But I think it goes to show too that, like, and this is something that's interesting, I think there's like, I feel like musicians can get inspired by other musicians, not only on like a sonic level, but also on like an ethos level, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Like, there's certain things about like a live performance that go a lot deeper than the music. It's about like how the room feels, how you can make it feel, how you can evoke, you know?
Totally. Yeah, and Briston was so good with crowd control and really the banter with his audience, and their set was super organic too. Like, it didn't really sound like there were tracks. If there were, I couldn't tell. And that's, I mean, we also try to not run tracks for that organic feel and for that. A buddy of mine was really sweet last night and said, like, it felt like live music, like you're just playing it live, you know, and you're finding those sounds
for sure
in the moment. And I think that's, we're just trying to make it special. I think everybody at Harcourt loves music so much that we just want to pay respect to it. And our way of doing that is giving it the most that we can.
That's so sick. My friend Jacob, who I went with last night, he was talking about how, like, he was just blown away by how the synth player was pretty much, it felt like he was improvising the whole time. Like, so much of that, it's so sick, dude. Run me through, like, what the actual setup was, because I was trying to figure exactly, like, in my head, I was trying to figure out the configuration. Obviously, you had, like, your synth player on the left and the guitar player on the right, and then you had, like, a bunch of, like, different, like, music box things and synths and like and like drum machines. What were you playing with?
I think it's way simpler than it looks.
Okay.
It probably looks way more complicated. My buddy Nolan Kaiser, famously Dogma Soup. You guys ever heard of Dogma Soup?
Is that a band name?
Yeah, it's like
that's a sick band name.
Chicago band.
Sick.
No, Nolan Kaiser, who puts out music by himself too, incredible songwriter. He plays guitar, and we're running him DI into this mixer that I have.
Okay.
And my buddy Jed, who puts out music under Jared, also coming out of Hardcourt. He plays keys and Grandmother, so that bass on there is the sub on the Grandmother. It's like a Moog synth.
Okay. When you said Grandmother, I was like, wait, that's the Moog, kind of synth?
Yeah, the Moog Grandmother.
Okay, gotcha.
Is what it's called, and he's playing like a Triton for the key sounds. And then that's also running DI into the mixer. Yeah. And then I'm running a Digitact Electron sampler that has all the drum beats on it and a bunch of samples that I can play with throughout the set. And then that's going DI as well. And for the vocal, I've got the vocal going into the mixer, and I'm using 2 pedals. It's like this Vox delay pedal that I got for really cheap, and Auto BAM is what it's called. It's just really nice, lush reverb. Yeah. And I'm just sending the vocal into that. So a lot of that space, it was that thing, and me just playing with the vocal and trying to get a different tone out of it.
Gotcha. So what you're doing is you're singing and running the pedals for your vocal effects, and then you're simultaneously doing the drums, like somewhat live, based with samples?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, something like that. Nolan is obviously playing his pedals on his thing. It's running into the DI, and then we just have 2 outs from the mixer. But yeah, the mixer kind of compresses it a little bit, so you have something that sounds a little more, for better or worse, squashed. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Like okay, gotcha.
Like it's kind of all together.
Not as big,
wide, which helps to control some things, but also limits certain things. We can't get as loud as we used to. Yeah, because there's kind of a ceiling on that. But yeah, that's a setup, and really it's to have the vocal above everything else.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's why we have it that way.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, because I feel like so much of the dynamic comes from like how loud your vocal gets versus like how quiet. You're almost like, there were some moments that I thought were really sick where you were like on the mic, like kind of like really whispery, way quieter, like way more expressive. And I had this thought, and I'd be curious, because I probably, this probably isn't an influence, but like it's kind of what came to my mind. The quieter moments when you got like on top of the mic and you were very like in your ear, like it reminds me of the way that John Bryan mixed the vocals on Circles by Mac Miller.
I mean, John Bryan is fucking inspiration. You guys ever heard that Meaningless album?
No.
In 2001, he put out a project, independently released. I think he was trying to get it to labels, but he put it out independently. It's so good. He's very Beatles inspired. Yeah, but it's also this nice like 2000s pop punk.
Interesting.
With really like John Bryan lush production. Beautiful. And some of the songs on there are so good. It's only on YouTube. Okay. I think they just reissued the vinyl, but I think it's sold out. But yeah, and they just put it on streaming too. So
sick.
But for a while it was only on YouTube.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it.
It's so good.
That's really cool.
And there's songs on there like Hook, Line, and Sinker, one of the songs on there. You'll hear that one and you'll be like, oh, I understand. Like I can hear this in Circles. Yeah. Yeah, like the bass and guitar thing that happens there. Yeah. It's from that song.
I think like some of the more acoustic like pop moments that are on Circles, like Surf, they have a lot of that like major to minor Beatle type stuff in it. Like Surf, hand-me-downs as well. Yeah. I think like the drums being so like dry on it. Yeah. It reminded me of the way that John Bryan kind of does the same thing with his vocals, where like they ride above the whole mix, but they're super in your ear. Like super, super in your ear.
Yeah, John Bryan he's the GOAT, man.
Yeah.
So he's maybe my favorite artist for sure.
That's so sick. Yeah, but it was like, so watching that in live time was so cool, because I was trying to figure out and decipher how much of it was live, because like the drums, it was very, very clear that like it was sample based, but I didn't know if you had like a drum pad up there or a drum machine or exactly what you're doing. So it's all just samples. How much of it is planned out and how much of it kind of varies like set to set.
Yeah, so the samples, we kind of program a beat that just rides through the songs, and that's the basis for it, and I can play over that or I can change things here and there.
Gotcha.
But I really wanted to keep it like bare bones, so it's not, it's not over the vocal. It's kind of just like keeping people in this trance, and then the vocal is what's moving you and moving the songs. But yeah, I mean, the vocal is everything. That's I just like songs. I can't really do instrumental music, and I can't really do songs that have like weird structure. Just in terms of like some of the new Brockhampton stuff, you know, or even the stuff that they were doing before where the structures are kind of like in and out.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that stuff. Like, I need a vocal and I need a song for me to be in it.
That's so interesting, because that's so funny because I felt like your stuff wasn't very structural at all, but I guess like when you break it down to like the actual structure of the song, right? Like it mostly, it is, I guess, mostly like very ABAB, like, you know, verse chorus, but it's like, I think just the way that you manipulate and like how dynamic your vocals are from like verse to verse makes it feel very different. Like House of Pising is a good example of that, where like the second verse, like you dynamically, vocally, you're like you sound a lot different than the first verse. But it is, you're right, like it's, I guess it is just chorus verse chorus verse. I think
that one is just verse besides the guitar part that plays there, but it's just verse. I don't know. It just, the vocal has to be there for me.
How did you get to that place? Like, were you experimenting first when you first started making music? Like, did you was it natural?
Yeah.
Like, was there a moment where you realized you're like, damn, the vocals need to ride above everything in this mix?
Probably recently.
Yeah.
Just from making so much music.
Yeah.
And listening to a lot of music. I started, actually, you guys know that song, what is it, Timmy Bowers? From a Graduation, from that Modern Baseball, not Sports, the other one.
Oh, Charlie, you mean
Charlie Black? Yeah, I think that one. The one that comes after the huge one. There's like a really loud one, Charlie Black.
Yeah.
My first song that I ever made was me trying to rip that song.
Whoa,
so it was like really spaced out and really like super emo, but drowned in like these reverb guitars. And so no, it didn't start that way. And it was, I think eventually I just fell in love with the songwriting and feeling like that was the most important. And it may, it may not be, but to me it is. Yeah. Definitely the most important thing is the song has to be good. Have you guys heard the did you guys see the liner notes for Horny Dog?
No.
So we did this like liner notes thing on Untitled. There's a version on there of Horny Dog without the drums, without all the crazy building and shit, and it's just guitar. It was the first session we did. It was just guitar and the vocal. And it's beautiful. Like, I kind of wanted to release that when we did it. Obviously we didn't, but
why not?
I just don't think it fit in the context of the project, and I also wanted to experiment, and if I didn't like it then, we could always tone it back and keep the original version. But that to me is like my form of, the song has to be there before we do anything else to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, how much does a song like transition? Like when you kind of come up with that first, whether it's a melody or whether it's like a lyrical theme or whatever, a set of lyrics, like does like how many iterations do you usually go through with a song? Like from when you kind of first get the structure to like when you're releasing it?
I don't feel like that. I mean, I guess in a way a lot, but I feel like my process is just having the pieces come together.
Gotcha.
Like I'll write maybe a verse, and then a couple weeks later I'll write the chorus to that. Maybe I'll revisit the verse, write a new verse, and then once I feel like the song is complete, then we'll go and start producing it. And it's sort of the same process with production. Is we'll record one part, record the next, come back to it, figure out how things fit together, and at some point we reach this feeling that that's all it needs to be. And we can't really take it further than that. Yeah, and I work on all the stuff with the hardcore people, Andy, Jed, Aaron, everybody's in there playing things and testing out ideas. And it's just like kind of throw paint at the wall, right? And then see what works.
I'm really interested in like the whole hardcore stuff, because like it, like I found your stuff independently. I didn't know about hardcore, and then when I got into it, then I found hardcore. Where is that, like, how do you, I guess, I don't know, obviously you don't have to classify it as something, but like, is it a collective based thing, or is it more of like we're just a group of friends banging? Because you also keep referring, like, you're saying, like, at hardcore, like, we're doing this, like, it almost feels like you think of it as like a place or like a group of people, like, why do you think of it as a place?
I think it's very fluid, and we're still figuring out what it is. To me, the goal right now is to make it a label.
Cool.
But it really started as just friends making music, friendship first, friendship music, and there's obviously a place tied to it in the Hardcore studio, and that's where most of the records are made. It really is just friends making music, but I'm kind of in, which is why it's interesting to see this, because you started somewhere and you took it somewhere else, and I'm sure in some ways you're still figuring out where to take it next, or looking at all the options of what Above the Bridge could be. And Hardcore's similar in the way that we've got the resources to make songs, and we've made songs, and we're putting out songs, and we're playing shows, and we're all thinking about where it's going to go next. Obviously, we can make the music. What comes after that? And I don't know as much as you don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're still figuring it out.
I feel that, and it's interesting because, like, it's cool you bring up the example of Above the Bridge, because I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I don't call it like a place, but like it is, and it's not really like, even, I mean, this is the place, for sure, but it's also like, it's a place of, like, I don't want to say like a place of like people, but it's like the people are the place in a way, you know, like,
for sure.
It's kind of like it's very hard to define. I also don't think everything needs to be defined. I also think, like, what's really cool about the nature of a group like that is, like, the way in which it can kind of mold and grow and take the form of different things, and it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, like, definable, and I think that's kind of what makes everything exciting. I always talk about how, like, I think the stuff that excites me the most creatively, like, be it whatever, right, be it like a movie or a musician or anything really, it's always the stuff that's hard to define. Like, things that, like, don't take a very solidified form, or the stuff that I feel like is truly boundary pushing,
I definitely see that.
When you say, like, label, like, would you guys sign artists, or would you be the artist on the label and you would find resources to build around it?
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure that out. It'd be nice to sign artists, or to have, like, a team that works with artists, and gives them whatever resources. So it'd be like, we have a studio space, and we have producers and writers, and people come to us to work with us, and we're taking a cut of, whatever they put out. Or we're putting it out under Hardcore and signing some sort of deal. That's, to me, where I see it going right now. And then we also have our own artists that are more, close together. Yeah. And those are different types of deals. Who knows? I think I was in, like, crypto Web3 for a second. Really strange world to be in. Yeah. But something that really inspired me there is how nobody really knew
what the fuck
was going on, and that there was room for new structures to be built. Yeah. And new ways of handling finance and governance, and that, to me, is really inspiring in a world where there's like 3 or 4 labels that fucking own everything. Yeah. Even the smaller labels, they own those. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think that's, like, what really excites me about the music industry right now. It's like, I feel like we're in such a, because I don't know, I think you can look at this as like a positive or a negative, right? But it's like, the reality is we're very much in a state where things are broken. This industry is broken in pretty much every single way. Yeah. And at least it is, it's broken for most people, which are independent artists. That's most people in this industry. Yeah. So it's like, it's broken for the vast majority of people. It works for a very small, minute population of people. And those are generally signed artists that came from money, or they are people who work at major labels. Gotcha. And if you're not one of those two things, in my opinion, this industry doesn't really compensate you or work around you, regardless of how much value you can provide. Sure. Like, I don't think it's as cut and dry as, like, you provide value and then, like, you get a return. Like, I think it should be that cut and dry, but it's not. So what's interesting to me about that though, and I think it's more exciting than it is like frustrating. Yeah. Again, like I'm not an independent artist, so maybe I'm speaking for them in a way that I shouldn't be, but yeah. But simultaneously, like that to me is exciting because I think there's a really, really, really big hole to be filled with like a new sort of entity that like isn't necessarily like label adjacent, but it's like, or I mean, I guess it is label adjacent, but it's not a label. It's like something new, you know, it's like a new idea. Yeah. And I think like when my head goes to that space, it becomes like hard to define what it is, but it's like, I think it's interesting. Like labels don't have identities anymore. They aren't front-facing brands. They aren't communities. Like, and we were like, I mean, when our parents were younger, bro, like people got excited when somebody signed to Death Row because like that was like an identity. It was a front-facing brand. It was a family. You were a part of something, right? I mean, it was like part of your identity. That's like really, really rare now. It's like labels feel like pump and dump Ponzi schemes, especially like majors, right? That's fair. It's like when you have something like TDE, for example, right? Where like they have an identity. Like people like know like you're a TDE artist. Like you think of Kendrick, you think of SZA, like they're TDE artists, you know, like, which is really, really rare. And I feel like labels, like, I mean, something like hardcore, like becoming what you would call a label is like, in my opinion, like what brings that front-facing identity of a label back. And that's what's so exciting. Yeah,
that's a really, I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, the idea of an identity for a label. What labels do you think are doing it right now that have a solid identity?
TDE for sure. I think TDE is like the holy grail of that. I think like they focus on artist development more than like really anybody, I feel like. And then who else like really champions their artists? Yeah, TDE for sure. I think God Mode had an interesting thing going before that kind of fell apart. I think I don't know. Less do than don't. I think it's like really rare. I'm racking my brain for other ones that I think have like a really, really clear identity right now. Like I really think it's something that it doesn't exist very often. Like I think Fueled by Ramen does. Like even though like like even though they are like a JV of Elektra, like they do kind of have that as well.
Yeah, well, they've got a legacy though. So.
Yeah, they have a legacy as well. And I mean, they're like, they've
been doing it forever.
Yeah, it's like an Elektra JV, and I don't know though what else. But that's the thing, right? It's like when I think of like, there's a lot of music-based companies that have more of an identity than a lot of these labels. I think, which I think is like very, very different. Like, or even like, don't even call them companies. Call them like collectives or like groups, right? Like I think of something like Kogo. And it's like has like a huge identity, but you, at least, you know, to me it's difficult to define. To me it's like not really a label. I don't know if, you know, if the people within it would disagree or not. But like to me from the outside, like it's hard to define, and that's like what's exciting about it. You know, I think there's a lot of things like that. Like I think like what Junior Varsity curated with a fucking weekend for a long time was very, very similar to that. It's like things that are difficult to define that like could eventually like become conglomerates or like groups of people that like would replace like a label structure, but they're more front-facing brands with more of identities, you know? Like that is the most exciting thing to me within music. But that's why I think hardcore is so cool, because it feels like it could be something like that, you know?
The possibilities are endless. But it's also scary. That's what scares me is like, where do we go? You know? Well, I don't.
Do you think it has to be super like calculated and like for like? I don't know if it has to be.
I definitely get in my head about it. But I think there is value in preparation and foresight, but I do think it can also be a hindrance. So
that's a good point.
It's a balance. It's a balance always, and I never want to not be thinking about it, because then I'm losing sight. Of what we are and of what we're doing.
I mean, I also think as well.
How often do you think about Above the Bridge?
Oh, generally? Every single day.
Right.
Like I never don't think about it.
Right. So you're probably thinking like, okay, we just did this. Like, what are we gonna do now? Okay, this opens up an avenue for us to do this. Do we do it, or is that not the right move? You know what I mean?
And it's interesting.
Like, how do you navigate that?
I totally know what you mean. I think like in the beginning I tried too hard to navigate it. And then like eventually I learned that at a certain point you just kind of gotta like be the boat that sails the water. Because like the waves are going to be there no matter what, you know? And it's like the waves come and go. And I think, I'll be honest, like, I think being able to quit my day job was a huge turning point for me because like, I think before then I acted out of desperation like a lot. And it was like the work would get to a place where it was toxic sometimes, and I lost like the love of it for a bit because like it's really hard to be like, I gotta make this work or I'm not gonna eat. Yeah, that's really fucking hard. And it's like once I was able to quit and kind of like make a, you know, like work at Live 2 and then also work with Above the Bridge and like, you know, make a living off that. Yeah, it got rid of a lot of that. Like the hunger is just as hungry. Yeah, but I'm not on like the tip of like a cliff anymore. Sure. So I'm able to think rationally and not think out of desperation. Like I think, and that has allowed me to like, I think, calculate things a lot better, which is strange because you would think like back against the wall you wouldn't, right? But it's like
it depends.
Yeah, like for me personally, it was like I think back against the wall kind of sometimes forced me to like sprint into a brick wall, metaphorically, right? Like I was like maybe I was treading water really hard, but I wasn't going anywhere. Okay. Whereas like I was trying super fucking hard to force things that just didn't really make sense with the longevity of the company, or like you know, force things that like didn't really make sense with the longevity of even like my personal life, right? And like I think when I was able to kind of take a step back and not live my life Monday through Thursday, I had time to think. Like I could sit in and that is so vital. I think like I would bet like anybody that builds like super long lasting things like would just say how important like taking a step back and thinking is. Sure. You know, it's so easy to like sprint and not take a step back and understand why you're sprinting or really think about it, you know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's difficult, but yeah, I mean, I would ask you like kind of the same question. Like, do you navigate it in the term, and also like, what is like, I don't think governance is the right word, but like in terms of like how hardcore functions like as a sort of collective and like people, like is it super defined? Is there like a defined structure to it? Like in terms of like the membership and like people who are part of it, people that aren't, and then like also how did you guys like meet and like was it like an unspoken thing that became a group, or like was there like conversation that kind of led to it becoming more of an official thing?
It's again like it's very fluid.
Yeah.
What it really feels like is a group of people who really care about each other, artistically and personally, who are just helping each other move forward. Maybe a little bit of like a commune vibe.
Cool. Yeah. Okay.
I met Aaron and I met Jed a while ago when I first moved here, and then Aaron and then Caleb and Jared, kind of everybody, we kind of all found our way together, and then we're just making a lot of music and we're hanging out a bunch, and we had this one moment when they first moved to the house, the studio, the hardcore studio, and we were in the back playing hacky sack.
Sick. And as one does.
Yeah, it's like maybe 5 or 6 of us, and this dove comes down and just perches on this like little building, just like the shed right next to us, really close, and it was just there for 15-30 minutes, just sitting there. And I think that night, or it was either earlier that day or that night, we had the conversation about getting together and starting to organize and putting out records under Hardcourt. And I think back then we were looking at it as like a collective / creative studio thing. And eventually we brought more people on to make music, and we're putting out so many records. We're having talks about now trying to become a label, and it's very, very open, but I think at the core of it, it's really just a group of people who care about each other and want to see each other do well. And in terms of organization, I think everybody just checks in with everybody and is, when you have a group of friends, when something is off, or you check in with your friends and ask about how their music is going, or you're sending demos. And I'm very, very grateful that everybody, and by design, everybody is so kind, everybody is so welcoming there, maybe to a fault.
Interesting. Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, I think that's how it works. It's just we all just care about each other. Yeah.
It's so interesting that I think people would like get the misconception that like there needs to be more of a structure, and they wouldn't focus on those values that you just described. Like they wouldn't focus on the idea of like truly having that love and truly having that acceptance, and like in reality that is like literally all you have. Like that is the only thing that like will keep everything together and working, you know?
For sure. That's maybe one of the things I think about a lot is introducing more structure, but also keeping that kind of democratic, everybody cares about each other and is it cares about each other's best interest. You know what I mean? And I mean, labels are the way they are. Labels have gone so far because of the way they are. You know what I mean? You have the tops and you have the bottoms, and eventually you have JVs, which are just the bottoms.
Yeah, it's a corporate structure.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm really curious to see if we can get there in a different way, and in a way that feels good for everyone.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know if it's possible, but I would like to hope so.
I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot about these companies that have lasted so long. You know what I mean? And there's a reason that they last so long.
Yeah.
You know, which is to say maybe we need some more of that structure. To provide that longevity.
Are you saying like almost play the game to a degree to be able to participate in a way where you can change it?
For sure. That organizing it in a way where there's less voices involved, maybe smaller ownership. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm sure you've had with Above the Bridge thoughts about that too, like who's running it, who is a part of it, how close are you keeping, you know, the organizational part of it.
I think I agree with you in the sense that like it is super fluid, and it has to be super fluid. And I think like I was really bad about like thinking about it in like a more cut and dry way for a long time, and like I was opposed to the fluidity of it, you know, and and it's like I wasn't for a long time. It was something in my head, and it was like I really, really wanted it to be that one thing, and I didn't kind of have that mentality, that like revolving door, or even that like fluidity of structure, right? Where like it defines itself over a long period of time. I think what's important is that like you're throwing ingredients into it every single day and seeing what sticks, you know?
Got you.
Like I think people describe like the kind of throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks as like a bad thing, when I don't really feel that way. I feel like every like impactful company in art, right, or even really anything, but I guess more specifically art, because that's what we're talking about. But like, I think all of those companies need, at least the ones that really matter and really make a difference for the better of things over the long term, right? They need for the first like 2 to 6 years to not even know what they are.
Sure.
I think people want to skip that part. Like I think people want to know what they're doing immediately, and that's why no one does it. It's like super, super important, I think, to go through that period in the beginning where you don't quite know where it is, so you can figure out like what it isn't. Sure. It's almost like you kind of work backwards. At least that's kind of how I think about it. It was like I had to learn what Above the Bridge wasn't before I could learn what it was. Yeah. You know?
What wasn't it?
It wasn't an Instagram account where I reviewed music. It wasn't a blog. It wasn't me interviewing artists in San Francisco only. It wasn't me like. It was like bits and pieces of all of those things. You know, like it really, because it was like I went through so many like so many trials of like what I thought it was before I figured it out. Yeah. And I'll probably change my mind in 6 months. And then I'll probably change my mind 6 months after that. But that's how it has to be, you know? Gotcha. And it's like each time you change your mind, you get a little bit closer. Just a little bit closer, I feel like. Yeah. And I feel like people are contestant to like going through that period, when I don't think you can do anything impactful without going through that period, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I agree with you. I think the difficulty we have is because we have so many people involved, or I guess the people who are involved are so close to it because we're all really, really good friends. Every decision we make impacts everyone. You know what I mean?
For sure. Wow, yeah.
Imagine if at a label, every artist they signed had a say in what the label is doing. Like, how hard would it be to make decisions? How hard would it be to reach a middle ground? You know?
But would that be by design?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly where I'm trying to, what I'm getting at is, where is that balance between that sort of structure that allows you to move forward, that allows you to make decisions and execute things in a just like sharp way versus that fluidity that allows everyone to feel comfortable and cared for.
Yeah, the balance is difficult. But I almost feel like maybe labels need a bit of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
like,
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, like that's I think what's the most exciting about it to me. Because you're right. And this is something that's interesting too that I think relates to what you're saying. I think like the way that you're thinking about it is tied to emotion inherently. Because like it's more than just a bunch of business partners, it's a bunch of very, very, very close friends. And I think that is just like the epitome of what music means, and that's why I think the major label system is so strange, because it's like I don't truly feel like corporations can like participate in art in a way that like is artistic, if that makes sense. I think like the motives of an artist and the motives of a corporation are antithetical to one another. I think like a corporation is meant, like, you know, by definition, a corporation is meant to make money. That's what it is. Whereas like art necessarily, I don't really think it is. I mean, it can be, but it's not really part of the sole focus of like the idea of it, right? So it's like when you have those two things and they're antithetical, it's like it's really weird to kind of develop a corporation that dives into a business that needs to be emotional but tries to take the emotion out of it. Which is why I think like the more you use the word commune, which I think was cool, makes a lot more sense to me. Because like it is fueled on emotion and it is more democratic, and it's not necessarily a business, you know. It's kind of has that like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like it has that revolving door a bit more. You know, where it's like come in, come out as you please, but like there is no, I don't know, like contractual things in art feel strange to me in general sometimes if they're not structured in a very specific way.
Well, or if they're not like beneficial to both parties.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, I think a lot of times we run into those things with people who don't have our best interests in mind and have their own interests. I think if every label really, really cared about the artist, it wouldn't be a problem.
And like that is what the mission statement begins as, right?
I think so.
But it's like how quickly do they stray from that, and why do they stray from that, and at what level like it makes me question like did like I wonder like did the majors start with the goal of this? Or did they not? You know, like was was Sony at one point like trying to be a hardcore Paloma, you know?
Exactly.
It's such a strange
and then
idea.
they became the villain.
Do you know about Indify? Have you talked to the Indify guys at all?
I haven't talked to the Indify guys, but I've definitely I know about them for sure. That's an interesting model to me. Because I think it is pretty progressive, but from what I understand, or at least from what I've heard, they're not able to give. They are only able to give resources. Obviously, this is their model, and it works for them, to people who are, I guess, like have traction or are going viral or.
So I mean, Indify themselves, like totally, because like they're definitely a smaller company, but that's kind of the cool idea of like their partnership system, where like different you know, companies that want to participate in music ownership in like really unique, like off the beaten path ways, like hardcore, can, and like they can be the ones that provide value.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be really cool if you talk to them. They, I think, share kind of your mindset.
Sure.
They, I don't know, like, I think that structure makes so much more sense than the major label system to me, because of the idea that like it can exist in a million different ways, because like
they're very fluid.
It's very fluid.
Yeah.
Like it takes into account like 1,000 different models of business that like exist in art that like should be kind of participating in music ownership, and it's not just the cut and dry 70, 30, 360 that like labels have been handing out for the past like 45 to 100 years.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it's interesting because like I could see things like hardcore like being identified and signing artists in like a way that makes a lot of sense, you know, because like what would the value be that like hardcore is providing? It's not like a super traditional label value, right? Like what do you see like longevity wise, right? Like what do you think it is that you're providing to artists like when they become involved with hardcore?
I just want people to feel supported.
That's fucking sick.
That's honestly, that's like the bottom line.
Yeah.
I want to make sure people feel good coming into sessions, and they feel comfortable to be vulnerable, to share. And I think that's how we get good art, and that's how we get potent art. And I mean that's all it is when we make music, is we're just being there for each other. And I think if we can have that on every level, it's a success. But we also have to make money.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That balance is what we're figuring out right now. I think it's going great though. I mean, the show is a huge moment, to see that much support for us. People who were there for Andy, people who were there for me, the other acts, you know, who are kind of we're coming up with. It's very cool to see, and to see. I was shocked at the RSVPs on that. It was crazy. I didn't expect that many people to come.
Who, like, I was trying to figure this out yesterday. Who was coming? Like that's because that's always my question. Like every show that I go to that feels community driven, it's like, who are these people?
Yeah, who are these people?
Like, do you have an answer to that? Could you figure it out? Like, do you think it was like a mixture? Like, was it? Where do you think the people were coming from?
I think all of us have friends, and so a lot of it is that kind of pull. The EP just dropped. I think there were a few people watching. That music industry people, Fat Evil Children had
dude, they were sick.
They were so good. They were really good. I've been a fan of their frontman Nick for a minute.
Sick.
And then I knew Sebastian and Diego, and then when they all and Truman I've known for so long too. When they all got together, I was like, okay, that makes sense. They make great music. Truman is an incredible producer.
Sick.
And they brought kind of a USC crowd.
Oh, okay.
I think USC has this 90s alt rock shoegazy thing that's also happening on TikTok, but that's kind of the USC vibe right now, from what I understand. And they seem to be spearheading that. So that crowd as well. I think After brought kind of like maybe a little bit older than us, kind of been in the industry for a minute vibe. So there were people from everywhere. And to me it still felt like everybody who was there was super accepting, and it was more than the actual show, more than the performance. And I think I said this when we were up there, I'm so grateful for that crowd. Yeah. Because they were so good. It was such a good, it felt so good in that room to me.
It did, dude. Yeah.
Which is, it's also a testament to what we're doing in hardcore. And when you come to the studio, it feels like that. We've had friends come over, and that's what the vibe is there. And when you come to a show, that's the feeling there. And we just hope to keep sharing that feeling.
I feel like that is like the thing that everybody needs to move with, and it's like feeling first, which is so interesting. Like I feel like this industry should be built on that and that only. Totally. But it becomes strange when like money gets involved and you're moving towards incentives that aren't the feeling. Yeah. But it's I think people get fooled by it often as well. I think people get fooled by the idea that like the feeling and the money are opposites when in reality they're the exact same thing, right? Because it's like,
how so?
I think all you're buying into is a feeling. I think whether you realize it or not, you're buying into a feeling, right? I think like, especially right now when music, I think, is coming out of a period that felt more corporatized than ever, where it's like, well, you could argue that like it was more corporatized or less corporatized than ever, honestly, because like the whole TikTok era, I think in a lot of ways kind of like produced this like weird oversaturation, but the oversaturation wasn't like in real life. It was like on the internet. So it wasn't even like real. It was like a bunch of kids isolated in their rooms, but not a lot of them going out to shows. So like that wasn't really real, but it's like it didn't feel like a lot. Whereas like you being in a room with 100 other people, like all listening to the same thing, all feeling the same thing, that feels really, really big.
Yeah, for sure.
And for whatever reason, I think a lot of this music industry is prioritizing the latter when they should be prioritizing the former. Or vice versa, I'm sorry. They should be prioritizing the live aspect of it.
Interesting.
When they're not, they're prioritizing the internet shit.
Sure.
When it's like, if their goal is to make money, they're going to make more money on the live side, but they're also going to create things that matter a lot more on the live side, I think, generally. Not to be like anti-internet music. I mean, I'm a product of internet music.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
yeah.
But it's I think people just get the two things confused, and I don't think they're the same at all. I don't know if you can replace like online music culture with in-person music culture. They're just different things. They just aren't the same, you know? And I think like you need to pursue the stuff that exists in real life, you know, to have that longevity. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just like not forward thinking, and maybe I don't know.
No, I mean that's a good point.
Yeah.
The pendulum swings. Right?
Yeah.
What are the movements you see kind of coming up right now, do you think?
Oh, what do you mean? Like
just in music?
Like in terms of like more industry trends, or in terms of like artist scenes, like
both, I guess.
I think right now, and I think this is why this show last night is so cool to me. I think like hyper localized, like smaller music communities are the only things that are like and even on a broader scale, things that are like pursuing the art, like a very specific style of music.
Interesting.
Be it, you know, a very certain kind of hip hop, be it a certain kind of pop music, be it a certain kind of really whatever. It's like those to me feel like the things that are broadening out and becoming like larger scenes that are actually making like huge impacts, right?
Sure.
I don't think it's as common right now. I mean, I could be so wrong with this, but I don't think it's as common right now to have like isolated artists that like are coming up as individuals and then just getting a break and blowing up.
Gotcha.
I feel like the artists right now that are really making things shake and like really impacting the industry are the ones that are building communities around themselves. We were talking about the AG Club guys earlier. I mean, they're like an amazing example of this. The Junior Varsity guys are a great example of this. Like, I think what you guys are doing right now is really fucking sick. It's a great example of that. Yeah, it's like artists that are not just building themselves, but they're building a world. They're building a community. I think like world building is more important right now than it's ever been, because like it's way more than the music right now. It has to be way more than the music, because like the music sounds like something that's awesome. What does it look like? I think that's arguably as important right now, and I think that's something a lot of people are skipping. It's like that level of world building where it's like, what does Ari Rivera feel like? I can listen to an Ari Rivera song and I can tell you what it sounds like, but like what does it feel like? I think that's something that people are missing and skipping, you know?
Gotcha.
But I don't know. I also don't know shit.
Oh, you know a lot. You listen to so much music, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm to a lot of artists.
I'm lucky to do it. What so how did the whole residency come about? And were you guys playing shows as hardcore like before that? And were they like on a residency basis, or kind of like how did you get from the first iteration of you guys all playing live together to now? And also, how did the residency come about?
Yeah, the first show we played was at the Natural History Museum, like I told you guys the other night.
That's such a sick first place to play a show,
dude. And I think it was, I could be wrong about this, but I think it was the last time that they used the inside room with all the taxidermied animals.
How do you book that place?
Cameron, my manager, booked it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And it was so crazy because it was this huge stage and a huge hall with these animals in glass enclosures. It was crazy.
It sounds like the Smithsonian.
Yeah, it was a crazy room to play. That was the first show we played, And then after that, we kept playing shows for My Music. Eventually, we played one for my buddy Yorgos, Georgie. That's what he goes by. Sweetest guy ever. He was a fan of the first project, and so he brought us on to play a show at Makeout. And the guys and the people at Makeout loved it, and spoke to us after the show. And I think at that point we were kind of in a place where everybody in Harcourt wanted to play live shows, and share music in that way. And so we spoke to them about doing a residency, a monthly thing where we have a different artist do every month. And we just started, and that's what the first one was last month, March, and that was Maisie May. And after that, it was my show. So it's only the second one. Hopefully we keep doing more. But yeah, they just really like the music, and they checked out all the stuff we're doing, and are really just fans of the music, which is super sick. That they would give us that opportunity, that platform to share that feeling.
Yeah, I feel like those guys are so music first. It's so cool.
They really
man.
are. They're great.
Yeah,
they're awesome.
They're super sick.
Everybody there, Jeff, Tim, Jules, Steph, everybody there is so nice.
Yeah, no, they're awesome people, dude. I love working with them, and just to go to their shows too, because it feels like similar to what you guys are building. Like there's kind of like I don't know if it's a scene or like more of like an identity or an idea that's bubbling out of there, but it feels like they're like doing something that's sticking. Yeah. Like fast, you know?
Yeah.
And it feels like even the last year for them, it's felt like shit's like really stuck.
Yeah, for sure. And music first. They love the music.
Yeah.
That's
super cool, bro. It's super inspiring. It's so cool to me that things like that still exist.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. So there's the residency. You guys are playing it live every single month, different artists every single month. How much of the music that you guys are all playing there is stuff that, like, when you are writing it, you're considering the live context? Like, since this is the first time you guys are playing a bunch of shows live back to back, were you considering like the live context of the EP while you were writing it, or does that come second?
I guess it varies for everyone.
Yeah.
For this one, it's a bit of both. House of Pies, that version of House of Pies actually came from when we played in the Natural History Museum. I had written it and produced a really slow, soft version, and then we were looking for a way to play it for that venue with the full band, and that's how that one came about. And it just there's also liner notes that I did for that song, and there's a version on there. It's a recording from the Natural History Museum.
Cool.
It's like the better version of the studio version. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the very first time it sounds like that. And that one is very emo. Like you'll hear the Modern Baseball on that one. You'll hear the.
We're gonna listen to that.
Say anything. It's on my Instagram bio.
Okay, cool.
And then on the website you can find it. It'll say like House of Pies in the liner notes. But there's a few versions on there. That one is. It's like a very magical moment.
Yeah.
That decided what the studio version was gonna sound like.
Cool.
And then all the other songs, it just kind of depends. So yeah, this was the first one that they kind of informed each other.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. Was that always supposed to be the single for the project?
I guess so. It's probably the fastest song on the project, which is probably why we put it as a single. And it's kind of catchy. So I didn't like when we were making it.
Why not?
It just felt maybe a little too easy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I really grew to love it. The more I listen to it, it's really, for me, easy song to go back to. And I think it's maybe the first time that I'm pulling from those emo influences.
What an interesting idea, it being too easy.
Yeah.
Is that something that comes up a lot?
Yeah. Again, like everybody at Hardcore cares so much about the music and has so much respect for it that we always want to push it forward and give back to it what it gave to us.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. You just know when you hear a record or you go to a show and something inspires you and changes your perspective, or when you're having a conversation and those are the moments we're looking for, and that's why I think a lot of us make music.
Yeah.
And so for me, that manifests in something like a song like that, Feeling Too Easy.
Interesting.
Have you guys heard the project?
Uh-huh.
Late Lunch is, I wanted that off. I didn't want that on there. It's like the really ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding, 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 because it felt so easy. It felt like just another song to me. There was nothing that, I mean, I really like the song itself, but it didn't feel like it was moving enough, pushing anything forward.
That's such an interesting idea, bro.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can learn from that. Like, I think there's so many artists who, like, it's interesting, right? Because, like, I don't know if, like, the answer, I guess it depends what you're trying to do, right?
There's no right or wrong. I love the people who just do their thing really, really well.
Yeah.
And that's great, you know? And they don't want to move forward, because that's also an incredibly valid. I was talking with Andy in the car earlier on the phone. That's a beautiful form of them expressing themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they've connected with something so deeply that they want to maybe recreate it, you know, or pay homage or stay in that realm because that's the way they're expressing themselves.
Yeah.
And the way that I express myself is also totally valid, you know?
Yeah.
Even if it's a different approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's where that comes from. Is I have so much respect for it, and that's how I show my respect. Is trying to move the conversation forward, I guess.
Yeah, because also, like, if you're not doing that, what are you really doing? Yeah. I mean, like it's. But I think there's also, like, a million ways to do that. You know, like, I think you can do that through, like, trying to make something that, like, sticks in somebody's head.
Sure.
There's something that impacts people.
Sure,
There's some, like, there's a million ways to do it, you know?
Yeah.
It's, like, at a certain point, like, I guess the question is, like, what are you trying to make somebody feel?
Totally. Yeah.
But that's, like, such an interesting idea to me, dude. Like, I could totally see, like, because, I don't know, that's, I guess, why I was surprised when, like, you said that you focus on or like you like more like traditional structures a lot, because like I don't, like, a lot of your stuff to me doesn't feel like it, because it, like, you know, if you boil it down to technical level, I guess it is traditionally structured, but like it's so like dynamic and spacey and like ever changing, it doesn't necessarily feel like structured, you know. And I think that's so fucking sick that, like, you are taking, like, the time to, like, actively pursue the things that don't feel easy, you know, when, like, you could so often do the other ones.
Totally, yeah. Like, Late Lunch is a great example of that, I think, is where we kept it easy. It's a very, very easy listen. And people are like, why wasn't that the single?
Yeah.
But there's a reason we made Horny Dog the first single, because it is a statement of what the project is and what we're trying to do, and the sound of that record. So
it's a really interesting idea. The first artist that Above the Bridge is, like, really, really working with right now is named Eli Holland, and he is like a unreal, like, music theorist, unreal jazz piano player, unreal, like, technical singer. But I'm relating to what you're saying right now and thinking about what he always says, because he always cites how that's, like, more of a curse often than is a blessing, because he can't, like, unlearn some of the things that, like, he are so stuck in his head. Like, sometimes he'll listen to, like, a more traditional pop song, and, like, it's hard for him to, like, enjoy it, or he'll, like, write a pop song that he loves, and then he'll, like, grow to hate it because the chord progression is too simple or something, you know.
Well, that's why I love, like, Anderson Howe, my girlfriend, who's also in Harcourt. She is so good at that. Is, like, writing the pop song and then finding a way to make it interesting. Yeah. And I think it kind of is what Harcourt is. I spoke about it to a friend recently and described it as indie heads making pop music. Yeah. Like, we're trying to pull from both independent music that is looking for new sounds and new feelings, and then also pop music that is relatable and comfortable. And she does it so well. Yeah. She does it so well. And I think we're all sort of somewhere in that realm. She's, like, more on the pop side of it. There are other Harcourt artists. Caleb, who does a project called Nurse. Aaron, who does Mikey Moo, who are more on the experimental side of it. You know, but to be able to have that full range of expression is super important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we want to make a pop song, we can do that, you know. If we want to make something that's abstract and not so cut and dry, there's room for that too.
Do you think there's a thread that ties it all together?
I think there's a few. I think one of them is it's slightly emo.
Yeah.
It might just be my perception, but I think it's all a little emo leaning.
Yeah.
And then also just in the sense of like all the songs are emotional songs. And then the other thing is there seems to be a overarching desire to push forward. I think that's another thread that ties it all together.
Yeah. That's so sick, man. Yeah, because I can totally see that as well. Like because you're right. Like it's almost like we're like it's almost like if you had like Grizzly Bear and Carly Rae Jepsen in a room, like what would they make?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like how far, like, because you're right, like it can go super pop or it can go way more experimental, but it's like no matter what, like I don't know, it feels like to me like the basis of the song is what actually matters. Mario says this thing all the time. I feel it's like cliche at this point. I cited it in so many interviews, but he always said I think he has said one time, and I just clung on to it. He said like a good song is good in any genre. I think that's kind of applicable to the hardcore stuff, because it's like you guys are making so many different things, but like the song is the strength of it, you know? I mean, like you could rewrite a lot of your songs in a way that was way more pop, but like the song is the strength of it, you know?
For sure. A good friend of mine said production is stuck in time.
Yeah.
A song is forever.
Yeah.
And I think it rings so true.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. How long were you, when did you kind of first begin to collect these collection of songs and like form it into the EP and start cutting songs? Were there a lot of songs that you like cut from the track list, and what was like how long was the process of like making the EP?
Probably, I want to say maybe 8 months. I wrote them, most of them in maybe a 3 month period, and then I went to my buddy Gabe's and cut a lot over the course of 2 or 3 months. Again, cut a bunch of the initial demos, just one instrument and the vocal, and then I took them back to the Harcourt studio and had everybody over, and we were all just working on putting parts down, and I would sit down with it by myself and cut pieces and, you know, figure out where the parts go.
Yeah.
And it was in between a few places. Gabe's studio, Future Classic, we recorded some stuff there. Mostly the Harcourt studio. And then I think September of last year it was done. My friend David mixed it, and we were just sitting on it for maybe 3 or 4 months, which is not something we usually do. I feel like Harcourt is very impulsive.
Yeah.
And we'll make something and then put it out. And it was really nice to sit on it and have people share it with people and get good feedback. And I think the show yesterday was a culmination of all that, as people hearing about it. And I think you could feel how much we had lived with that music.
Yeah.
Playing it up there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it felt really good.
Why'd you sit on it opposed to just put it out?
We had a deal for it,
and
then it fell through, and then we were trying to find maybe another deal, but realized we kind of just have to put it out independently. This has to come out now for us to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We put it out independently and move on to whatever's next.
It's an interesting thing putting out music, because it's like it's kind of like killing a part of you. Yeah. Like it's like a period of your life, you know?
For sure.
Because you kind of got to kill that period and move forward, you know? And that means either releasing it, scrapping it, or whatever, but it's like it's moving on to the new stuff, you know?
Totally.
What do you think were like, are there any moments within that 8 month period like ring true to that feel like greater like a greater example of what the period of making the project was like? Like, what do you think was the hardest point during the creation of the project? Like, was there a moment where you felt like it gained momentum versus lost a bunch of momentum?
Yeah, we had a deal. And it was a really good deal for us, and we thought it was secured, and so I paid for a bunch of shit out of pocket, and then it fell through completely.
Damn.
Our guy was just like, it's not happening. It's a music industry thing.
Yeah,
you know how it goes.
yeah.
And that was really defeating.
Yeah.
Because we'd put so much time and effort into this, and more than whatever they were giving us, it felt like somebody believed in the music.
Yeah.
And for it not to go through was kind of a punch in the gut. And I think the period after that, when we really started to share it and people really showed their belief in what the music was, is what turned that around. And finding the community for this music. I mean it just that was probably the toughest part in the process, but the making of the music was so easy, maybe the easiest it's ever been. Yeah,
that's so cool, man. I think like the process of putting a project out, or even just like being a musician, is like this series of rolling this really, really heavy ball up a hill, kind of like the Sisyphus analogy.
Sure.
Like rolling this really, really heavy ball up a hill, having it fall on you, and then, you know, rolling it up again, having it fall on you again, rolling it up again, having it fall. But every single time you're pushing it from a place that's like a little bit higher, and every single time you get a little bit further, and it's like,
sure,
eventually, you know, when it falls on you, it doesn't hurt as bad because it's fallen on you a bunch of times, you know. And I think eventually you become immune to it. But it's so interesting how like sometimes the losses or like the biggest setbacks in hindsight become the biggest victories, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like the way in which, like, you know, for example, like maybe if, you know, that deal happened, there wouldn't have been this residency or like things like that, you know?
100%.
It's so strange how like those things pan out in ways we never could have predicted.
Totally.
Yeah. You mentioned that you feel like it was like a momentum period right now. We were talking about this last night. How like long have you been doing it? Like when did you officially start? And like it's just kind of like the most momentum you feel like you've ever had, and like how do you feel about more the general course of the way everything's moving at the moment versus the way it has in the past?
I think I've been doing it for a while. Maybe since I was 16, seriously. I moved back to the US to really start making music. And I think we're doing well in the industry right now. I think. I really have no gauge on that.
Yeah, there's nobody to know.
But I know the music feels very good.
Yeah.
And the community feels very good. And that to me is all that needs to be happening.
Yeah.
The deal thing was also crazy because it forced me to it falling through forced me to ground myself again in the community and what we can do for ourselves. And that's how we got to the show yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I mean, community.
Yeah.
Like you say all the time. So important.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have everybody at Harcourt. They're so amazing.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, I think community is the only thing that like really moves somebody forward, whether they know it or not, in this industry. It's strange. Like you cannot even like I don't know, the way that I cite success sometimes, like how many people believe in something, like that is to me, like in my opinion, like the real marker of success. It's like how many people like buy into this idea, how many people believe in this, how many people like are willing to like buy into this thing, you know. It's like, in my opinion, the more people that buy in, the bigger the community gets, the more tight-knit and stronger it is, like the more impact the success has. I think you can think of every musical fan base and like group of people that have been really impacted by one musician is just one huge community, really, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the coolest shit ever, bro. But it's so fucking sick to see what you guys are doing, and like
thank you.
The way that you're pursuing it through like a very strictly community driven lens, and like how it feels like this at least from the way you described it, like it feels like this revolving door where it's like things are very like not defined, and like it is very fluid. We keep using the word fluid, but like it's very fluid, and like it shape shifts, and I don't know, man, it's fucking sick, dude. It was really, really cool to learn about it and learn about everything you're doing, and like I don't know, I'm really excited to see like the future of where your music goes and where hardcore goes and everything. But yeah, it's exciting, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate the conversation, dude.
Anytime, Dante. Anytime.
Of course, man. Yeah, congrats on the EP and the show and everything. Very, very exciting.
Thank you.
Of course, dude. Tell them where they could find you, where they could listen, where they could stream, they could follow, and do all the things.
Ari Rivera on Spotify, on all the streaming, at your boy Ari on Instagram and every other platform, at Hardcore Paloma as well. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Sweet. Thank you very much, dude.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Of course.
Hell yeah. All right. Music matters.